Welcome to the Limitless Podcast. The Limitless Podcast is centered around exactly that, being limitless. Hunting, fishing, fitness, nutrition, adventure, disabilities. What may be covered during the Limitless Podcast will be, well, limitless. Stay tuned for this episode of the Limitless Podcast. Hey, it's Limitless Outdoors and Limitless Podcast. We're in October now. It is 100% whitetail season on the eastern seaboard, Midwest. There's still dudes out chasing elk around. That chapter is closed for me this year. I am 100% chasing East Coast whitetail bone at this point, and a couple of does here and there too. But this is such a cool time of year. And before we get into this episode, because the gentleman that I'm looking at right now is he's quite the whitetail connoisseur. I'm really looking forward to chatting with him for an hour or so today. But first, we're going to talk about sponsors, and you guys, all the listeners, you guys know the gig. These are for you. There's no kickbacks for me, so purely for your benefit. So let's run down them. We have Hunting Day Coffee, 10% off of any order on their website, and that is Be Limitless 10. You have Phelps Game Calls for a 20% discount. That is a one-time use code, so spend it wisely. Go to their shop, grab some calls, use that code, 20% discount. That is Be Limitless 20. On Point Adventure Foods. If you use freeze-dried foods, stop buying mass-produced, mainstream marketed freeze-dried meals. Go with On Point Adventure Foods. They are incredible. It's 10% off any order through On Point, and that's Be Limitless 10. And then you have Wilderness Athlete, 20% off any Wilderness Athlete product, and that's Be Limitless 20. And you have Vortex Optics, one of my favorite. I'm holding my rangefinder right now for another reason, though. But this, I do use a Vortex glass across the board for everything. That is a 25% discount through eurooptics.com. And that code is VTXMTLS25. And that will get you 25% off any Vortex product on eurooptics.com. And then we have the Love Sauce, which is a small batch boutique hot sauce out of Maryland, veteran owned, and that is 10% off any $12 order or more. And then we announced this recently during the A3G Initiative recap podcast. We have a new sponsor. I have a new sponsor. You have a new sponsor. And I made our guest wait because I forgot to bring this up for this recording. This is the magnetic rangefinder strap made by Stick It Gear. This thing is awesome. This is my second season using it. Last year, I used this in the backcountry. I used it out of a tree saddle. I used it in ground blinds. I used it in spock and stock. I used it for archery. I used it for modern firearm. I used it for muzzleloader. I've used it on the flat range indoors. I've used it in my garage. I've used this on 3D courses, including Total Archery Challenge. I absolutely love this thing. Stick It Gear wanted to sponsor the Limitless Podcast. So it is a 20% discount on their website, and that's Be Limitless 20. Now, remember, you have to spell Be Limitless, right? If you just throw in Be Limitless, spell check's going to take over. Your discount code is not going to work. So that's BELIMBITLESS, and then whatever the code is. So just like the podcast is titled Limitless, that is your correct spelling for the code. So enough of that. We get to chat today with Derek Craig. Derek Craig is the founder and owner of New Day Outdoors. He's got a ton of YouTube content. The guy is a very talented videographer and photographer. He's a whiz at whatever media like design. He's great at it. I'm very envious at his talents. He's closely associated with Hot Shot Archery. He's also closely associated with Magnus Broadheads, and I'm not sure what other little roots and fingers he's dabbling in this year. But we might tease some of that out of him. But I'm looking forward to chatting with him about whitetail, and hopefully he's going to share a story about his recent success that he's been bragging about on social media. So, Derek, welcome to the Limitless podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. It is great to finally sit down and talk on this. I know you and I talked about it doing something last spring around turkey season, and due to my being an idiot, I never made time for us to do that. And then when you and I were talking there at the Mobile Hunter Expo, was the PA one where we crossed paths again this year. We're like, hey, we got to sit down and talk. And so when you texted me the other day after I shot that buck, I'm like, well, enough talk. We just got to do this. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. So
I'm really glad that we finally had our calendars connect and we're able to do this. I will let everybody know that Derek is one of the main catalysts in suckering me into shifting over to a Hot Shot thumb release. Robin Parks certainly planted his seeds and had a big part in it. But when we were at that PA show for the Mobile Hunters Expo, Derek had his X spot, and he handed it to me and said, "Hey, walk around with this release in your trainer today, your release trainer, and just play with it and see what you think." So I did. I cannot tell you how many times I set the trigger on that release, and I use the knock-on release trainer. It's so simple. It's so compact and easy to use. And I walked around that show for the better part of an entire day, just pulling and working that release. And I ordered one, and I've been using one, and I absolutely love it. I do. I absolutely love it. There's been a little bit of a learning curve. I've lost a couple of arrows with it. I found myself getting my thumb in front of the barrel too early.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm trying to let my draw down, if I'm not going to take the shot, remembering to move my thumb behind that barrel. I've sent a couple of arrows down range doing that. I've collapsed my shoulders twice inadvertently, and because my thumb was already in front of the barrel, that sent arrows. But outside of that, I'm trying to spot and stock has been a little bit different for me. Trying to figure out how to unknock an arrow, get it knocked, have your release at the ready, and all of that. But it's again, that's just repetition.
I think in a spot and stock situation, a very, very similar release that might be better for that. And I've thought about it myself because one of these days I'm going to go out and do a spot and stock mule deer hunt. And I think when I do it, I'll probably take the hookup release from Hot Shot. It's basically it's the same trigger. It's the same sear mechanism. The handle it doesn't have the finger hole for the handle. The handle's more closer to probably the Ember model, but they all use the same mechanics. And on the hookup, it's an open hook. And so what you could do, I'm not a big fan of the wrist lanyards, but you could actually put it on a wrist lanyard if you wanted to keep it real handy, or if you just wanted to keep it right there in your pocket, like for me being right-handed shooter in my right pocket. And then when you go and hook it up, you're not worrying about, trying to make sure that you're clipped on and all the fumbling that can kind of happen in, say, the X spot or Ember type of hook situation. So that open hook, that's why they designed that. Dave White, who owns Hot Shot, he's big on spot and stock hunting, and he wanted something that he could just hook on there. And it's a pretty good release. I've shot it. I've never owned one. I've shot Robins a few times. I know when the hookup first came out, he was using it in tree stand situations and ground blind hunting turkeys and just leaving it hung on his D loop, because the big fear was, well, if I got that, if a hunter decided to buy that release and get in a tree stand, have you now taken away the nice advantage the X spot and those have of being able to just hang your release on there and not worry about it? And he never had it fall off. Now you could bump your bow hard enough and fall off, but I mean, heck, you could bump your X spot and hit the thumb release and have it fall. And knock on wood, I've never had it happen in a tree stand situation before, but yeah, that would be a really good one for a spot and stock. And again, it's going to have the same trigger action and feel as the X spot, and you talk about sending a couple erroneous arrows downrange. The whole thing, the whole trigger and steer situation is very much like a match grade trigger that you'd say put in a performance rifle or an AR-15 or something like that. And so it's got a lot of adjustability to it, and depending on how you set it, I mean, you can actually set that thing to be pretty much a hair trigger if you really wanted to. And so, you get into this balance of what, how sensitive do you want it and have it break clean, but not a lot of pull. And if you get it too light, you can get into some of those issues, and it does take some adjustment. The only time I've ever had I had a problem one year sitting on the ground in the winter months, and I was just wearing so many layers, and I was sitting on the ground and I was just kind of all bunched up, and I drew back on a deer and I went to let down. And even though I had my thumb, I've just gotten consistent. My thumb doesn't go in front of that trigger until I'm ready to squeeze. And then if I'm going to let down, immediately the thumb comes behind. Well, when somehow in the letdown process, inadvertently that thumb button caught on the neck gaiter or whatever I was wearing. And next thing you know, I sent an arrow out there in the field, and, and the deer were already running off, and then they were really running off. And thankfully there was a bunch of snow on the ground. I had a lighted knock, and I went out there right at dusk, and I was able to see a soft red glow underneath the snow and find my arrow, or I probably would have never found it. But anyway, so yeah, you just got to play with it. But like any new piece of gear, it does take some getting used to, especially if you're going from, your typical wrist index finger, wrist strap, index fingers type of release. It can take a bit getting used to, but they're great. I've loved working with the company. I've been working with Hot Shot for, 6 or 7 years now. Robin Parks is one of my dearest friends, and he and I do a lot of turkey hunting together. We do some whitetail hunting together. He came to my place and hunted last year. I went to his place about, I think it was during COVID, and hunted. I'm actually going to go out there. I was actually going to text him here a little while ago and got busy. I'm going to go out to his place here probably in a couple weeks and do some hunting out there. He acquired some new ground and said, hey, I need you to come and help me thin out some does. The landowner wants some does taken, and maybe we can get you a buck too. So yeah, but he's a good dude. And so he hooked me up with Hot Shot, and, I'd been shooting, just the same old index finger release for years. And one day he's like, hey man, he goes, why aren't you shooting a Hot Shot release? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, here, just take one. And I've fallen in love with it ever since. And I got the X Spot's my go-to. I've got an Ember. It feels the same. I throw it in my pack as a backup release. If I was ever in that event in a tree and I did drop a release or something, at least I've got one, in there. But they're great releases. My daughter shoots, my youngest daughter shoots one of the index finger releases and really likes it quite a bit. They're good company, small company, really the oldest company in the release business. Dave White owns it, and he's a good dude. And yeah, it's a fun family to be a part of, so.
I'm really enjoying it. So what I've done, I am still not comfortable with hanging my release on the D loop. Yeah. Even in the ground blind, I just don't want it hanging there. Up in the saddle, I do not want it hanging there. So I put a lanyard on mine. It's just it's a Hunter orange lanyard that has reflective fabric through it. So I mean, in the dark, man, it glows like a champ. Yeah. And then I wear a little wristband. And so the wrist strap goes over it, and I could take the knot. I put a figure 8 in my lanyard, so it goes underneath the backside. And inside I can tuck the leg of that X Spot. Oh yeah. The X Spot is a single leg release, by the way. So you can tuck that single leg underneath here, and it's completely out of the way. I hiked
Yeah.
miles in Idaho on this recent elk hunt
Yeah.
with my X spot tucked in that way. I didn't
Yeah.
have to worry about it falling out of my pocket.
Yep.
I know some folks, they like to tuck their release into their bino harness, but every pocket on my bino harness is already claimed.
Yeah.
I did find a Kydex retainment device
Hmm.
for it. The problem with that is I mean, it retains your release. It does not
Yeah.
come out easy. And when you do remove it, it's noisy.
Yeah.
So if you have an animal within archery range, you do not want to be pulling it out of that Kydex holster, because it's going to spook
Yeah.
the animal. So
Yeah.
I put my release in there if I'm navigating in the dark, or if I'm on a range or transport. That's where it goes. But once I'm hunting, it's out of that Kydex holster, and it's on my wrist. But I'm absolutely loving it so far. Robin and I had him on the show a couple of months ago, and we nerded out on Hot Shot releases, and I'm super happy with that X spot. Well, I'm really interested to see you guys are leaking photos of it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
He Yeah, he's really excited about it. He told me on that podcast he's still using the the X spot test model that
Hmm.
he was
Yeah.
doing R&D with.
He still has the prototype.
Yeah,
I have one of the prototypes of the brand new one too. I forgot about that. Yeah. It's out
yeah,
there in the barn. I haven't I mean I've shot it a bunch. I haven't taken out hunting because I film all my hunts and everything, and I'm like, I just every time. Well, it's like you mentioned, I work with Magnus. I've been working with Magnus since 2009, and Mike Samu owns that company's a great friend, and we develop heads and do a lot of R&D stuff together. And every time we come out with a new head, I have to go and hunt with it before it's released, and I end up having to blur out stuff in videos, and it's just like, it's I don't like doing it in the edit, but then it does create a little bit of discussion and buzz, like, oh, something's coming because there's something
mm-hmm.
blurred out. But I just don't like it. I don't like it long term down the road. When I go back, like when we launched the Black Hornet series of broadheads back in 2015, the whole fall of 2014, I'm hunting with them and killing stuff. And now I go back all these years later and I look at all that footage. And I'm like, it's all blurred out, and same last year with the single bevel, we did that, and it's all blurred out. And it was fine then, but down the road, I go back and watch those hunts or something, and I'm just like, I hate it that's blurred out. So I haven't used that new release yet in a hunting situation, because I don't want to deal with blurring it out. Sorry, my son's my phone here. Anyways, but yeah, it's a pretty cool release. It's neat. Very similar sear and trigger mechanism, little bit different handle shape, some different aesthetics about it, a couple new features about it that the other releases don't have. Very nice release. Yeah. So I've had one since probably March or April, I think. So yeah.
Robin said that he's struggling with whether or not he's going to put his X-Spot prototype down and really start using it, because he's been enjoying it. He's been enjoying it that much.
I'll believe it when I see it if he puts the X spot down. But he might. I don't know. So I know, like I said, I love mine. So, but it's weird because you get attached to things when you've helped develop it, like he did with the X spot and this new one. I've had that same deal like with Magnus. I go through all the broadheads that Mike and I have worked on together and different products that we've worked together. And it's hard to get me to put down those products for new say. It's hard for me, for example, to put down the Black Hornet series of broadheads and like last year pick up the single bevel and run it. I'm like, I love this Black Hornet. So, but I helped engineer it, I helped R&D it, I've put all this time into it, and I've killed all these animals with this head over the years and preached all the merits about it. And then you develop a new head, and the new head's fine if you're into single bevels. It works. I mean, I killed 5 deer, I think, with it last year, and they all died quickly and all that stuff. But it's like, then I was faced with this year, and everybody's like, "Well, are you going to use the single bevel all this year?" And I'm like, "No, I'm going back to the Black Hornet. It's just my baby. I'm tied to it. I mean, nothing against that single bevel. It's wonderful, but I'm just, that black hornet's my baby. It's like shooting turkeys in the head with the bullhead. It's like, yeah, I could go to body shooting them or whatever, but it's like, man, I just have this special bond with that bullhead because, I mean, I've killed so many over the years, and it's just been kind of, I came in on the tail end of that project with Magnus and, helped Magnus really develop, the whole system and shooting them. And you just become kind of a little bit emotionally attached to that, the process and the gear. So it's like, if we came out with a new turkey hunting head, I'd be like, I'll do it. I'll do it to help market and sell it. But give me that bullhead, So Robbie's the same way with that Xbox, So anyway,
well, it'll be exciting to see it when it comes out. Are they? Is it coming out? I don't remember. I think there was information put out. Is it going to come out this fall, or are you guys going to bring it to the ATA?
I don't know what I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if I would guess at this point in the year they're probably going to wait till closer to ATA time. Whether Hot Shot goes to has a booth at ATA or not, I don't know. They haven't in the last couple, so I don't know.
Yeah,
so it's hard to say.
All right, are you going to the ATA this year?
Oh, of course, I'm always at ATA. So I'm always at ATA. I'll be there with Magnus as I always am, and it's in Indy this year, which for me is. I'm in northern Indiana, so for Indy, it's a 2-hour and 15-minute drive for me. So a lot better than going to St. Louis was last year, that's for sure. So
I was not going to the ATA, this coming ATA, until this last week.
Oh, really? Good deal.
Now I am going. Yeah, they contacted me and asked me if I would come speak. So I'm
awesome.
I had to run it by the what I call the CRO, the Chief of Ritter Operations. It's hunting season, and I'm going to be away so much, and I'm speaking at the Western Hunting Expo in Salt Lake in February.
Wow, that's good.
And I had originally told my wife that I was foregoing the ATA to go to the Western Hunting Expo to speak there, and then the ATA reaches out and said, "Hey, we want you to come speak on saddle hunting at the ATA."
You have to do that.
So then I sat down with Tara and I'm like, look, I didn't solicit them. They contacted me. So if we can make this work, I think that would be the right thing to do. And so the agreement, I'm not going for the entire time. I'm doing a 60-minute seminar and a morning seminar, and then I'm doing a 30-minute coffee talk all in the same day. So I'll fly in Tuesday night. I'll speak Wednesday twice, and then Thursday morning I'm going to Chris Ham's prayer breakfast, and then I'll wander the show for a couple of hours, and then I'll fly home Thursday on an afternoon flight. So
very cool. Very cool.
I'll get to see you. It'll be good to be in the same space again.
Yeah, we'll cross paths, I'm sure. So definitely. But yeah, I'm always at ATA, man. I don't know. I've been going since 2010 or somewhere. And besides a year that we didn't have it because of that pesky virus thing, I've been there every year. So love it. I'm there in the Magnus booth with Mike. He and I running the show every year, so it's always a good time. So
the other thing that I might do, I'm there, Derek, and this is really the first time that I'm announcing it. Like when I say publicly, there's very few people that are aware of this, but I think that I might be truly separating from any type of government employment, and I'm going to start populating a resume through the outdoor space. So why I'm there. I might pass around, if I either pass around some resumes and or shake hands and just let people know that I am available if they're looking for somebody that's motivated in the outdoors and loves chatting with people and is heavy into the industry, and just start moving my resume around.
Yeah, well, I mean, you definitely have the other resume, the hunting and the context in the outdoor space and the platforms that you're building with, not only, with your brand, your Limitless brand, but your A3G branding and that program, I think that would definitely give you some street cred when it comes to walking around ATA to knock open a few doors, and who knows where it goes, and that's really, that's what it takes if you're going to be in this business, in this industry. I can only speak from personal experience. Obviously, I have a career as an engineer outside of the hunting space, but I've built this like little quasi business and everything, in the hunting space. And it's just been basically through, putting in the time and knocking on doors and getting networking and knowing people, and leveraging your platform and some of your talents. And you have a platform, and you have talent yourself, different than those that I offer, but you've got them. And you leverage those, and next thing you know, good things happen, and then it becomes how do you want to scale it, and that's where it does get a little bit difficult in the hunting space, is if you want to scale something pretty big. And when I say that is, a lot of people have this dream of, I want my mortgage to be, and my grocery bill and everything, car payment to all be paid, through a job in the hunting industry. And that does get a little bit tougher, but there's a lot of opportunity out there for people to make money in the hunting industry that can be a good side gig, and I look at myself as, an example of that, when, everybody else said you're silly doing this and you're wasting time, and, what are you trying to be the next, this and that? And like, no, I'm just trying to do my thing. And next thing you know, you get a pretty good side hustle going on. And again, it comes with, networking and having some sort of skill set that you can market and leverage, and just being a good, genuine person and building everything on relationships, which that's obviously is one of your strong suits from what you and I've known each other over the last couple of years. So,
I really, one thing that I like about the outdoor space is when you get away from a lot of the social media stuff, it's just such a great circle to be a part of. And being a veteran, if I could choose a dream job, it would be, obviously I love going and speaking, because I like educating, and I like watching people learn and seeing the light bulb go off and being a part of that. And
you're good at it. I've watched you speak on multiple occasions, and you're good at it. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Hopefully getting better, but, I like that. The ums, I'm terrible at ums. I can't shake them.
Yeah.
But being in a veteran outreach position for a company, I think would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of finding one or developing one. But anyhow, did not get on the show to talk about the ATA and future employment. But the ATA is a great topic, and Indy is a great location.
It's the best.
If anybody's listening to this and you've been to an ATA and it was not Indy, and you have the opportunity to go in 2025, you should probably go, because Indy is a solid location when attending the ATA.
Yeah, it's the best. When they hosted the Super Bowl back in, I think it was 2012, they put so much money down into that downtown and really revamped it and just made it so nice and safe. And I've noticed the last couple of years they need to pump a little more money into it again. And you go through these anytime you've got a Super Bowl event, an Olympic event, any one of these big stage events, in these cities, it seems like they ride about a 8 to 10 year cycle of, everything's great. And then you start seeing a little bit decline. You need another event to pump money back into it. And it's still great. But it needs a little bit of economic, something to light a fire on there. And some of that could be just, not to be political, but it could be the general economic and political sphere that we are currently in this world, whether you agree, disagree, whatever. That could be contributing to some of that. It could be some of the post-COVID stuff. But, Indy's still great. It's still the best place, in my opinion, to host an event like that. And, I'd love to see them get another, Super Bowl or some other big event like that would pump some new, fresh dollars into that downtown and give it yet another big facelift. But it's good. It's a safe area. There's nice restaurants, easy to get around and navigate, good hotels. Everything's in walking distance. So
it is.
For sure.
I I think Indy is where I met Robin face to face.
Yeah, probably. So,
Yeah,
yep.
pretty sure it was Indy. But
Yeah.
so
Anyway.
let's tell us about your hunt. I received a text message from you
Yes,
with
you
just
did.
portions of an antler, and
At
then
like midnight.
and then I see a social media post about do hard things.
Do
So,
hard shit.
Mr. Mr. Craig, I want you to tell me about the hardship you have recently endured.
Well, so everybody's definition of doing difficult or challenging things is different. What I consider doing challenging myself is maybe not necessarily what you would. I mean, I've listened to you talk about going and pursuing bucks in these mountain bucks way off the grid, camping in the middle of nowhere with minimalists and all that. And to me, that's doing hard stuff. And but I think everybody's got to define what's challenging to them. And I think one of the things that we do, and I've been so guilty of this for so long, is we've become very comfortable. We get good, maybe great at certain things. Reasonably, we improve at doing something because we hunt the same farm over and over again, or the same terrain over and over again, or whatever name, pick it in life. I mean, it might even be the same job. You do the same job for the last, 15 years. You're like, okay, yeah, you're good at it, but what else can you do out there? And it's very difficult for a person to leave a comfortable situation. However, a comfortable place is great, but nothing new grows in a comfortable place. You don't expand as a person in a comfortable place. And so when I say all that, when it comes to my deer hunting, so I didn't grow up as a deer hunter, didn't come from a deer hunting family. I was kind of introduced to it as a late teenager through some friends of mine. I went off to college, could sometimes hunt, but not much. Graduated college, and I said, this is what I want to do. And I knew nothing about it, no mentors. And so I live in Northeast Indiana, relatively flat farm country, mix of ag, small timber lots. The property I'm sitting on right now at my house, there's maybe 4 foot of elevation change across the entire 78 acres. And it's wonderful hunting. It's a lot of fun. And it was a great place to teach myself, in this type of environment. And so, you look around and I mean, right now, for example, the property that I own right here where I'm sitting, I've owned for 16 years. I got another farm I've hunted for 28 years. I can pretty much tell you where the deer are going to be, the turkeys are going to be, how you're going to kill them, and all this and that. Robin comes and hunts, or Buddy Nate Sellers from PA comes and hunts. I can put them in the tree, and in 3 sits, they're going to kill something, or at least have an opportunity. And it's wonderful. And you make you make social media posts, and you go, this is cool. And everybody goes, oh man, you're just a stone cold killer. And then one day you look in the mirror and go, I'm just doing the same shit over and over. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I love it. I don't take any of it for granted. I've been blessed in life and all this stuff. So I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, my eyes started to open up a little bit and be like, man, I got to do some different stuff. You got to do, and you also go, at that time I was about 50, now I'm 55. Like, man, life is, flying on by and everything. And so, I started getting into this, the world of mobile hunting. That's how you and I met, obviously, is the saddle and mobile hunting community and all this and everything. And started expanding my horizons, and went out with Rob, and I hunted in Missouri on a bunch of public land and different situations and hills out there. And 2.5 years ago, when you and I met at the Ohio Mobile Hunter Expo in Southern Ohio, I was down there. My wife was with me. I won the film festival contests and stuff down there. And I'm looking around at everybody that's there and meeting all these people. And I've known all these people in the hunting industry from the ATA side that you and I just talked about. I mean, all the names. I mean, I've met them all. Some I know, some I don't. Some I've just met in passing. seeing all that side of it. And next thing you know, I'm hanging out with all these dudes that are just dudes, but they're freaking stone cold killers. And I'm hearing them, I'm hearing Jake Bush and Jacob Emery and Chris Leppert and yourself. And I mean, you should run down the names of all these people that you and I mutually know who we're just all dudes. And they're all killing deer in different situations. You got Jacob Emery's freaking kayaking like miles deep in places, and you're wearing out boots up and down mountains, and Jake Bush is the king of the hill country, and Chris Leopard's like this squirrel on crack and speed and goes a million miles an hour, and somehow it's like finding these crazy bucks deep into public in weird situations. And I can just go on and on. That's just 4 examples. And I told my wife we were down there, and everybody's like, "Oh my God!" And then everybody's like looking at me and they're going, "Oh, they were oohing and ahhing over the film." And I'm like, "There's more to this." And I told my wife, I said, "I want to do more than this." And we had rented a little cabin down there back in the hills. And I said, we're sitting there at the cabin the one night, and I go, "I want to buy this." I said, I want this. And I'm very leery of public land. I don't like being around crowds of people when I'm hunting and stuff like that. So I've got this in my head, this weird like phobia of showing up to a parking spot and there being 2 trucks there and me going, shit, now I got to figure this out. And I've done it, but I get anxiety. So I told my wife, I said, I want this. And so we came home, and this is no kidding. About 2 weeks later, I was messing around on Zillow or something, and I found a listing in southern Indiana from Whitetail Properties for some ground in southern Indiana, hill ground. So I called the agent the next morning. I said, I'm interested in this. It butts up to Hoosier National, hundreds of thousands of acres of national forest. But it's hill country. This is not 4 foot of elevation change. This is 400 foot of elevation change. This is deep ditch bottoms and timber, not corn, not soybeans, not alfalfa fields. And so the listing agent goes, "Well, you better get down here because somebody's going to buy this ground." He goes, "It won't be here by the weekend." So the next day, that was like on a Wednesday. And so the next morning, Thursday morning, my wife and I drove clear down there. So we look at the property. I said, "Yeah, I'm just going to take it." And I literally bought it right there on the spot. I'm like, "This is it. I'm just buying it right here on the spot." Boom. It's like, "Are you serious?" I said, and my wife goes, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm buying this." Period.
And how many acres is that piece?
And it's only 15 acres. We're not talking huge, but the back of it butts up to Hoosier National. And there are a chunk of Hoosier National. Now, Hoosier National's broke up all over southern Indiana. So it butts up to, I don't know, I've never ran the math. I mean, who knows? Probably 10,000 acres. I don't know, of Hoosier National right there, that chunk. And there's no access. It's all surrounded by private until you get a couple miles south, and there's a couple southern. I'm like, man, this would be cool. This would be a way for me to dip my toes into this water. I can have my private. I can get back on public where I don't feel as though I'm going to be running into people and everything. So anyway, so that's a little bit backstory on it. But when you do that, and I like to own property. I like to buy property. Again, I mean, like, I'm not rich, but I've been blessed and I can afford certain things, or I can bribe the banker into loaning me money to buy certain things. But anyways, the point is, it's like this American dream of owning property, and I love it. My in-laws are big farmers, so I believe in owning ground. They own thousands of acres. So I just believe in owning ground. So it's not a bad investment. So we did it. And then I was like, oh crap, what do I do? How do I do this? And so then the process of learning how to hunt the hills, and it's going to continue to be a long learning process, but it's starting to click finally, which is really cool. And it's been a lot of talking to my friends who hunt that type of ground, to listening to tons of podcasts and everything. And so last fall I went down there, camped down there. We don't have a house. We're hoping probably next year to maybe build a small house down there on it. But anyways, some camping down there, and stuff, and trying to figure it out. And I'm going down there, and scouting. I'm going back in the public some, and looking around and fighting all the nasty undergrowth. I'm used to having a 4-wheeler trail to walk back, to go get in a tree. So all this stuff. So anyways, but so it's a big real fish out of water thing, and I went down there last fall in I was like the first week of October. I killed a really nice doe down there with my bow and was like on an oak flat down there. I'm like, this is cool, success and everything. And, and just kept with it, went down there several times this past year to try and figure more out, study more, listening to people. Chris Leppert and I in particular had arguments on the phone about thermals because thermals in the hills, and this being a mountain hunter guy, it's different than thermals in flatland northern Indiana. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
up here, when we get a 5-mile-an-hour wind, that's going to dominate thermals up here. I mean, because we
Yes.
just don't have the elevation changes. So when we get a thermal drop here, like in the evenings, okay, the wind dies down, your scent just pools around the base of a tree. And so, as long as there's really not a lot of wind to carry it one direction, it's like, okay, whoop-de-doo. And in the morning, it starts rising up. We don't have the grades. We don't have the topography. And there are in some spots. I'm not saying it's totally nil, but it really isn't a big factor. Really, up here, it's, the traditional wind. Just get downwind. You got a north wind set up. So, you're on the south side of that scrape or the bedding area or whatever aspect you're hunting. And so Chris Leppert's like, dude, no, you don't understand. It's going to be this. And so the more I went down there, the more I started playing, I'd go down there and I'd scout evenings, mornings in the off season, dropping milkweed, the little puffs of powder and stuff, and watching things happen. And it started to dawn on me like, this is how it works. I'm starting
Mm-hmm.
to understand. The acorns versus the ag. I mean, we have acorns up here. I killed a really nice buck last year feeding on acorns up here, but it's not like down there. Up here, we got soybeans, we got corn, we got I've got brassica food plots all over the place. I mean, clover, we got, you name it, we've got it to hunt. Down there, you don't, so you're starting to learn, look at the native plants, the acorn droppings, learning the whites from the reds and everything. And so I went down there this fall. I went down there 2 weekends ago. Big goose egg, did have a spike stroll through one morning, but again, just learning and looking and scouting. And so then I went down this past weekend. I drove down Friday in the morning so I could hunt Friday. My plan was hunt Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, and probably drive back Sunday because I had some work stuff I had to get back for. And so hunted at this oak flat that I'd killed a doe on Friday evening. Didn't see anything. Friday or Saturday morning, same. I think I got the right winds. I think it's going to work. Hunt it. Didn't see anything. It's about 80 degrees out. Midday. I'm like, gosh, what am I going to do? I'm like, I got to get down in these bottoms where it's cooler. It's 80 degrees. I got it. If I'm a deer, I'm looking for 75 degrees or 70 degrees or, anything below 80 degrees. And the only place
Mm-hmm.
is going to be down in these bottoms. Winds are kind of, looking at the winds and everything. And I'm like, I just don't like the wind direction though for this one particular bottom. I knew it. I'd scouted it. A lot of deer had crossed there. I'd seen some a year ago when I was hunting down there. Some does had been going across. And I was really hunting for any deer, just a doe or a mature buck. I mean, I'm not a little dinky buck, but even a doe would have been great. And just trying to figure it out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go down there. I'm going to trust the process on the thermals. I'm going to do this and everything. And it's, again, it's not that it was like difficult condition. When I say do hard shit, it wasn't like I was, 2 miles back and, all this. It was difficult for me mentally to wrap my mind around hunting this way because that's not how I've been hunting. It'd be almost like
Mm-hmm.
taking a guy who's hunted the hills and turn him out here like here's ag country. You got 5 acres of little timber here, and you got 80 acres of corn here, and you got 60 acres of beans over there. Find a deer. They're gonna be like, how in the world am I gonna find a deer? There's no timber, there's no this, there's no that. It's very uncomfortable when you're not used to the situation. So Anyway, so yeah, so it's Saturday evening, and I don't know, it's probably about 4 o'clock, and I get dressed, and I'm I'm standing up there on top of the ridge where you go and drop down into this cut. It's about 200-foot elevation change, and I'm like, this wind's all messed up. I just don't see it working. And then I get halfway down the hill, I pop some milkweed, and it's blowing 180 degrees from where it was on top. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me! Like, trust the process. Like, keep on working. I get down there, and I'm like, okay, this is this is where I want to be. I'm looking on the ground, and dude, the acorns are like marbles. Like, if you're a deer walking through there, I think that they'd slip and roll a hoof ankle or something. I mean, or sprain a knee. I mean, there's so many acorns on the ground. I'm like, well, if nothing else, if I'm a deer, I'm going to come here because it's cool. There still is just a little bit of water in this cut from the last time it rained. So not, I mean, it wasn't flowing water, but there was like that half an inch to inch of little puddles in there. I'm like, well, they could get a drink. It's cool, and there's food. And I'm standing at the base of the tree, and I pop out some milkweed, and I'm like, holy cow, the wind's actually, what little wind is going the right direction. It's kind of blowing, the cut's right here in front of me. It's kind of blowing from the cut diagonally towards me. I'm like, and I'm like, well, this would be good. I'm going to do this. My gosh, I'm going to do it. So I get my one stick out and everything, and I get up the tree. I'm about 18 feet up. I get all set up, get all my camera gear up, and I pop out some milkweed, and the wind's blowing right into the cut. I'm like, right to where I'm wanting a deer to show up. I'm like, this is all messed up. Like, I'm like, I can't, and I'm stressed. I'm like, you know what? I should just get down. I should move. And I had to stop and tell myself, trust the process. When the thermal switch happens, what's going to happen is, instead of all your air blowing into that cut, it's going to drop down, and it's going to flow down at an angle, and it's going to follow the cut downhill the way everybody talks about it. And I'm just thinking about these arguments I've had with Chris Leppert the whole time, laughing. Like, okay, so, set up there. And then, of course, here's how things work is, I film hunts. I've been self-filming hunts since 2008, 9, something like that, and everything. And I pride myself on putting together, some quality video footage and stuff, and good edits and everything else. And so I've got my main Sony mirrorless camera set up, and I've got an action camera for a POV. I got a 360 camera. I've got this little DJI Pocket 3. It's like a little action camera that's got a little gimbal head on it that I use as like a wide shot to complement my mirrorless camera that I can get nice, tight, just beautiful footage on, get everything set up. I turn on my main camera and nothing happens. I'm like, what in the world? Well, actually, I went to turn it on. It was already turned on. Battery's dead. I dig through my camera pack. I don't have a battery. You have got to be kidding me. I'm like, this is what I do. I film hunts. Like, this is the biggest rookie move in the world. I got a dead battery on my main camera. I'm like, I could climb down. I could hike my way all the way back. I'm like, and get back in here. It's going to waste 45 minutes to an hour. By the time I do all this stuff, I'm going to get hot and sweaty. It's like, what, screw it. I'm not going to see anything anyway, probably. I'll just film on all this little stuff. So I spin the little pocket camera around on me, and I'm like doing this like little interview. I'm like, this is what happened. Total rookie move. As it will end up probably turning out, when things don't go right is when things actually end up going right. I mean, you always kill a deer at the worst possible time. You kill one like 8 o'clock in the morning when you got a 10 o'clock work meeting that day, or late on a Sunday evening when on a Monday you got to be on the road at like 6 a.m. It always happens at the worst time. I'm like, this is what's going to happen. I'm like joking in the camera, like, you watch, not really thinking this is going to happen. So anyway, so I'm sitting up here, and sure enough, about 6 o'clock, I can start it feeling, cooling it down, and I'm popping milkweed, and next thing you know, that milkweed start. I'm like, it's going to work. And about 6:30, everything, those thermals are doing the right thing. And I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I can't believe this. I'm like, certainly nothing's, and I'm looking up this hillside the whole time, watching, scanning. when we bought the property, it'd been logged. So one part of it, I'm butted right up to the public. So I've got like 50 yards from my tree to the public line. And this hillside's on public, but I've got some deadfall or some treetops are down on the other side of this cut from me. I'm like, man, something's gonna come down through. I'm fully expecting a doe, and I don't know, about 7 o'clock, 7:05. I'm sitting there. I was scrolling through some trail cam photos from a home that had come through on my camera on my phone, and I'm sitting there. I'm scrolling through, and I hear, and I was feeling squirrels. And first I thought it was a squirrel, and I look up, and here he came right over the hill, off of public, coming down. He's dropping. I mean, he dropped 150 foot of elevation, probably like that. He did at one point. He stops. About the time I notice him, he stops and he like looks right at me. And how he could see me, I don't know. He just knew. I don't know that he really knew something was there, but he stopped and he's checking everything out. Felt like he was staring through my soul for felt like 2 minutes, but it was probably 2 seconds. And then here he came. He just walked right down the hill, comes right down to the bottom, starts drinking out of the puddle right there, 15 yards in front of me. Of course, all I've got is this little tiny action camera to film him with and a 360. And and I remember just thinking, I cannot believe this. And the thermal, that's the whole thing to this, is like the thermals. It was so eye-opening to me because I was like, holy cow, everybody's right. Everybody I've listened to about hunting hill country is right. And so he sat there and he drank for, I don't know, I've watched it back on video a bunch of times now. And it felt, I mean, honestly, at the time, felt like he drank for 10 minutes. He drank for like a minute and a half, but I swore it was 10 minutes. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, God, I don't know. Do I want to shoot him? Don't I? And up north, we've had EHD break out bad this year. We have no deer. I mean, what deer we have are a bunch of dink bucks, not many does. I really don't have anything on camera at all this year that I want to shoot. I don't know this deer down here. The goal is to shoot a cool deer in a new situation. And I'm like, I think I'm going to shoot this deer. I mean, I'm looking at points. I'm like, he's got at least 10. His dark rack, I mean, kind of tall and tight. I'm like, he just, and I honestly, and I'm a sucker. I'm the king of 130-inch deer. I mean, I'll never kill a 160 because I like killing them at 130 too much. I just like killing deer. Dude, I freaking love it. My friends make fun of me all the time, and I'm like, I don't care. I just love it. I love hunting deer. I just love it. And so he drinks for a while, and he picks his head up and sticks his head back down, drinks a couple more seconds, and he picks his head up and he turns sideways. And there was a clump of leaves between me and him. Obviously, can't shoot him when he's drinking. He's facing right at me. There's a bunch of leaves right between me and him. He turns broadside, and he takes 4 steps. He starts walking that way, and I came to full draw. I'm just thinking, just anchor, 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 and bury the pin. And he took 4. It might have been 5 steps. Broadside right there, buried the pin. Let the arrow fly, man. Buried it, double lunged him, buried it in the offside shoulder. He charges off right into one of the treetops from the logging. Like, his exit path was the worst he could have ever chose, because it was like, it sounded, I've never elk hunted out west, but I've watched enough videos, when the elk go charging through all that deadfall timber, out there, and the crashing sound. I was like, holy crap. I mean, just crash. And then he goes down, he gets up, takes one big bound, maybe a second little leap, and it was just crash, and that was it. And I'm like, he's not 40 yards from me. Like, I mean, from where I shot him to the arch, and if he went 30 yards total in his route, that was it. I mean, it was probably one of the fastest deaths that I've ever witnessed in a deer. And I've killed a lot of deer with a bow and arrow, I mean, I was like, wow, that was like almost like gun efficiency, right there. Yeah, I mean, and so that was it. And he was dead. I mean, he died in that top, which was a hellhole to get him out. Actually, it was hard. I knew right where he fell. And when I went to look for him, I couldn't find him. he was buried down in these logs and treetops so deep. I'm this is no kidding. I was almost up on top of him when I actually saw him. Of course, by then I didn't wait around a lot. I called my wife right away, gathered kind of my thoughts and a little bit of video stuff, and packed all my stuff down. By the time, you know how it is saddle hunting, you got to get all your gear around,
Mm-hmm.
get down out of the tree and all that. And so it wasn't quite dark yet, but it was getting pretty dark. And I about stepped on him before I actually saw him. But yeah, so then I had to get him out of there and everything, which, and I guess the right thing to probably have done would have been quarter him out right down there. But I just love nice pictures of deer and stuff. I'm like, man, if I go run down late tonight to a gas station like 20 miles down the road, I can get some bags of ice, pack him full. I can do some pictures in the morning, quarter him out. So of course I decided I'm going to try and get this beast of a body deer out of there whole by myself, which I did, and all that stuff and everything eventually. But yeah, it was quite the ride. So, for me, that was when I say do hard stuff or hard shit, it was hard because it was something that's out of my element. And I'm very proud of that buck. I mean, I haven't put a tape to him. I'd say he's low 130s, 10 pointers, beautiful deer, absolutely gorgeous deer. He's bigger than anything I've got up here at home, and up home, I usually have a couple 140s and even some 150s on camera, not this year because of EHD. So I'm incredibly proud of him, very happy with him. It really set in the next day when I was driving home. I packed up everything after I quartered him out and got him in my cooler on ice and done photos and everything. And I'm driving home and I was hit about Indianapolis, driving north. And I just all of a sudden a big old smile came across my face. I was like, man, I freaking did it. Like, really happy with myself. And it was a lot of fun. It's the whole point to it really is, if anybody, do something beyond your comfort zone. I have friends up here that I know a couple people. They're like, I can't believe that's the buck you went down there and killed. You could have waited out your season. Who knows in the rut what's going to show up? But they're also not going to do that. They're going to keep hunting the same 50-acre ag small timber block that they've hunted the last 20 years and not venture outside of that comfort zone, and so really it was fun. And it's really is a confidence builder, it's a confidence builder that it justifies keeping that property down there. Cause hey, there's more hunting potential down there, in future years when, obviously success, you get some confidence, but it now it gives me some confidence to push into the public to try some stuff deeper, in the future, maybe go on some other stuff. There's some public not far from me in Ohio that I've been threatening I'm going to hunt. And granted, it's not hill country, but it's a step outside of my comfort zone. It's competing with every other, possible hunter that wants to. And I'm thinking, hey, I might do it. I got a lot of season left, I am going to go out and hunt with Robin out in Missouri on some stuff, which will be new ground. But again, it's that encouraging people to do challenging and different things, very similar to the speech I watched you give, when we were out there in PA, and you were really telling people about, hunting the mountain situations and like, hey, if you're not willing to, that's cool. Cause that's more ground for me being you in that case. But if you do, I would encourage you to do this and I'll be there to help you drag a deer out or give you a high five or share a shot of fireball with you or something like that. And so that's really is it. And that to me is the most exciting thing about this hunt is just doing something that just a couple of years ago, I would have said, no freaking way am I doing that. There's no deer worth dragging it, out of that hellhole and going into a situation, camping, eating freeze dried meals out of a bag, and all that. And, just, how it is. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's probably one of, I've killed a hell of a lot bigger bucks. I mean, I'm staring at some big ones right there. I got a bunch laying back here, really nice one up there on the wall behind me. And I'm as proud, if not more proud of this buck than I am the bulk of all these others, So yeah, so that was the hunt, man. It was a hell of a good time. So
that is an incredible story. I love it. I love every single bit of it. And I'm super thankful that that if this is the only time we ever rip a podcast together, on the Limitless podcast or any other podcast, Derek, I'm thankful that it's this day, this story right after this event. And I don't, I encourage people to do what I do, especially out here on the East Coast, because not everybody can go out West. And if people do want to go out West, the worst thing that you can ever do is spend all that time and money going out West for the first time you're ever going to do that. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
People do it all the time. And they come back and they talk about how awesome it is, but it would have been so much better if they would have had a practice run somewhere. And that's what I really try to get across to people. But, you know, you started the whole thing off about, you know, it's not as hard as the stuff that you do, but you also said, you know, you have to put stuff into perspective. I learned that a long time ago when I entered into the fire service and public service. And then it morphed into my outlook from what I've done and where I've been and the things that I've seen in the military. What's hard to me might be completely out of the realm for other people. What's an emergency to your everyday citizen is not an emergency to a firefighter. Right. What's chaotic and frightening and overwhelming to the normal person isn't necessarily to a guy that's deep in special operations, right? It's what you're used to. It's what your comfort zone is and what you're willing to do to get outside of those comfort zones and experience. And it's a whole new world. That's why I'm writing the book that I'm currently writing. It is pursuing the trophy of experience. I have a ton of respect for guys like Jake Bush that will go out and spend an entire season or multiple seasons targeting one very specific deer. That takes a level of dedication to that single animal that I really don't want to commit to. Maybe I'll do it at some point in my life. I don't know if I ever will. I pursue a different type of experience. I like getting as far away as I can from other people. And sometimes that as far away as I can, that might be a mile. It might be 7 miles. It really depends on where I'm at. That's my thing. And when I go in there, I'm not targeting a deer, I'm targeting deer. And it might be a 7 point. It might be a 12 point. It's at that location, that morning, that evening, that tree, everything happening around me, the way the animal comes in. I never know what's going to trigger my trigger, but when it happens, it's the most exciting and elating thing that happens to me in that moment. And I've got a 7 point on the wall that means far more to me than the 170 inch that's on the opposite end of that same wall, because how much effort I put into that 7 point compared to that 170 inch deer. It's that whole experience for me. When you step away from your known, from that comfort, and you put yourself into the potential of failure, and then you overcome that, it's incredible.
Oh yeah.
Whether you're transiting 200 feet or 2,000 feet, Derek, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you shed your comfort and you're like, I'm going to go do something different. And to me, it's a physical challenge. It's a mental challenge. It's a comfort challenge. I'm going to go do something different. And this is hard to me. And you did it. That's the cool.
Yeah. It really, it's very rewarding. Every bit of it was very rewarding. And it really, I think, gets more rewarding every day that goes by when you sit back there and think about it. Like I say, it really didn't even set in until, an hour and a half into the drive home on Sunday, and of course, that night, oh my God, dude, I was so exhausted that night after I killed that deer and you getting him out and to the point. And of course, you know how it is in camp too. You're eating the best you can. You're trying to take in water and stuff the best you can. but you're not. I mean, that day hanging around camp, I'd eaten fairly healthy and stuff, and I drank a couple, 3 bottles of water. But that whole process, by the end of the night, I was so dehydrated. And I got back to, my camp, and look, I don't camp in a tent. I've got an enclosed cargo trailer that I converted into a camper. I love the thing. It was a fun project, but it's nice. I like a comfortable cot to sleep on and stuff. That night I couldn't sleep, A, because of the adrenaline dump. B, there's times where you're too exhausted to sleep, and I was that. And then C, I was every hour I was having leg cramps because I'd let myself get dehydrated, and I not intentionally. I mean, I drank water, but I didn't have any electrolytes. I didn't have, anything like that. Things that now I know in the future, to plan a little bit better on some of that stuff. But it was exhausting, and then the next morning, I couldn't sleep. So I just got up at like 6 a.m. before daylight, started packing gear up, and then daybreak, the sun's up a half an hour. I can take some decent photos and then quarter him out and get him on ice, which, is a whole nother thing. I'm used to dealing with a deer hanging on a gimbal in my barn, and I have a walk-in cooler, to deal with. And so here I am, quartering this thing out, trying to keep him clean, get him on ice in a cooler, that whole stuff. It was an exhausting process, and it took, I mean, I was telling you before we started this, it was this morning I woke up, and here we are, it's Tuesday morning. I woke up and told my wife, I'm like, I think I finally feel recovered from sleep, getting some decent sleep, from that. But yeah, it gets better every day, when you start thinking about the accomplishment, that you did and everything. And, and one of the things that really sucks is, and everybody's been fairly positive about it, but, you're proud of this stuff, and, we all live in this social media world. And then, when you work in the hunting space, there's a social media kind of requirement, as much as I loathe social media, and all that. And I've had a couple personal friends send me text messages. Well, that was a decent deer. I'm glad you had a successful hunt. It's kind of like, can't you just freaking be happy for, somebody? And so there's that. To me, again, I'm elated with the deer, honestly. And I'm happier with him. I went out, he's out there in the cooler. I went to check on my cooler today, just make sure it's cold, open the door. And, I still haven't skinned out his head or anything, but his head's in there. I'm like, he's going to make a cool Euro mount, and I'm going to put him proudly up on the wall, right up there with some of the, the bigger, the 140s that are on the wall, and stuff here, So, I'm real proud of this deer, and it just gets better. And it really is all about the experience. I've talked about this before in other podcasts. One of my favorite deer, he's actually laying back here, that I ever killed, is just a 124, 125 inch 8-pointer. And I killed him sitting on the ground, self-filming over a buck decoy, just because I wanted to challenge myself. No blind, sitting on the ground, turkey hunting style, with a bow, shot him at like 18 yards, the buck decoy out in front of me, self-filming, multiple camera angles. And the only reason I did that, I had bigger deer on camera that year. I wanted to challenge myself in killing a deer that way and self-filming it the entire way, doing that. And to me, he's actually one of the most rewarding bucks that I've ever killed. And it was because it was, again, saying, you know what, dang it, I could go get in a tree and I could kill him. I've done it how many times? I want to do something this way just to see if I could do it. It's a few years ago, I started, turkey hunting I've been turkey hunting obviously with the bow for years, out of blinds, head shooting them with the bullheads. And I got it in my head, like, I'm going to do this on the ground, sitting, turkey hunting style, old school running gun, shotgun style, but with a bow, head shooting, all self-filmed with multiple camera angles. And I'm going to do it just because it's freaking hard to do. That's it. Like, I've killed well over 50 turkeys with a bow, the vast majority of them head chops with bullheads. I love it. I love sitting in blinds and killing them, but I don't need to. I don't need to prove. What's it going to prove to anybody? Or even myself? I'd rather just go out and sit on the ground up against a tree, self-film it, and either succeed or eat a tag. I don't need to kill another turkey to prove that I'm some great turkey hunter. You know what I mean? So to anybody. So is what it is, and so it's kind of the same way, whether you're a deer hunter, waterfowl hunter, whatever. It's like elk hunter, other big game. If you've done it a zillion times one way, why not challenge yourself to do it a different way? Find a different setting, a different method, a whatever. Challenge yourself to do it, and you're going to risk eating a tag. You're going to. But again, man, a comfortable place is awesome, but not a damn thing ever grows there. So
no, you don't mature. You don't grow. You don't experience new things. It breaks my heart when, when I talk about the style of hunting that I like to do, and I do it for deer. I do it for turkey. And people make the comment of like, I would never work that hard, or I would never put that much time and effort into a deer or a turkey.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to hear. Yeah, man, I have so much fun backcountry turkey hunting. And I would encourage you, now that you have this 15 acres that butts up to all of this private land, you want to have the time of your life, pack in and go pursue birds back there in that public land. It is, I think that's so much fun to do. And that if that's all you're worried about doing is killing something fast and easy and being able to drive a four-wheeler or a side-by-side up to it, throw it in the back and hauling it back to a barn and skinning it out, and then having the hunt be over, then stick to your hunt club or your private land. And for some people, that's all they ever need. And that's okay.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, heck, I like it. I mean, I'm going to go. I actually have a second tag that I can open up in Indiana in our reduction zone. And it's a special property, and it's specific, and it's going to be, and I've got to go shoot a doe off of it before I open that buck tag up. And that is simply a jump in a tree. I know every tree on that property because I've hunted that property for 28 years. And when you kill a deer, you might have a 30-yard drag, and then you're going to back the pickup truck right to where it is and throw it in the bed of the pickup truck. And I'm going to bring it home, hang it in my barn, skin it out, and throw it in my walk-in cooler. And that's awesome. It's fun. And there's no shame in that. And I take pride in doing that. But man, there's something to be said for every once in a while just stepping out and challenging yourself and doing something that's hard, and I'm already licking my chops. I can't wait, for the next hunt down there, I can't wait to go to Missouri and hunt this new property with Robin. He just got it. He really doesn't know the property well. And like, hey, let's go and figure it out, let's go figure it out. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be not this, but not as hilly as that was down south, in southern Indiana. So, you go and figure it out. It's a challenge and something different to do, and, possibly eat a tag. Oh, well, I'm going to hang out with one of my dearest friends and have a great time for a few days, maybe make 2 trips out there, that's the way you got to do it. So,
I absolutely love it. I've developed a really, really good friendship. One that I never saw happening. With a gentleman down in Virginia Beach. It's East Coast Nick. And I just had him up on the property opening weekend here in Maryland. And it's funny, this conversation that we're having, Nick and I developed our friendship by me introducing backcountry hunting to him and turkey hunting to him. And all we've done together for a year and a half is backcountry hunt together. And he's been struggling in getting a deer. So I had him come up to our 25 acres, and I had put a blind out 200 yards behind the house, and he came up, and we're staying in the house. We have showers, we have toilets, we're eating home cooked food. It's literally like I have a side-by-side trail that leaves the house. I've brush hogged it. So, I mean, you're walking on pine needles. It's a
awesome.
200 yard flat walk to this beautiful baronet high five blind with chairs in it, and sat down. And our third evening, he shot a 8-point whitetail in velvet. That's his first
Yeah, I saw it.
archery
That's
deer
cool.
is an 8-point velvet deer. And we're
Yeah.
sitting in the blind together and he looks at, well, and we do the whole hunt and everything. And we the deer ran probably 160 yards, but he ran when he finally went down. He went down on the other side of the 7 acres that I have cleared that it's all overgrown slash now. He went down, he ran through that. So I mean I'm imagining, that's a lot of what your deer ran through,
Mhm.
all that slash and deadfall.
Yeah.
He hit the pine strip between the cleared property and the dead end paved road that skirts the land that we own, and he went down in that strip of pines. So it was
Mhm.
maybe at most a 30-yard drag to the side by side. And then we
Right.
drove it around to the shop and hooked it up to the grapple on my Kubota, lifted that sucker off the ground, and we're skinning it out of the shop. Right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
listening to music, we're drinking beer, we're having a
Heck
good
yeah.
time.
Yep.
And Nick looked at me, he's like, I feel like I'm cheating.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm cheating. He's like, we have worked so hard. We spend so much time packing in and setting up camp and scouting and putting in miles and climbing mountains. He's like, I just walked 200 yards behind your house and shot my first archery deer. I was like, yeah, you did, Nick, but you're still hunting. I'm like, that was our third night.
Yeah.
It's if he hadn't come in, you would not have shot a deer. If you hadn't done everything right in the blind, you would not have shot a deer. I mean, you were so laden with buck fever, you almost missed the deer. I mean,
Right.
you're still hunting. It's
Still hunting.
it's 100% a different type of
Yeah.
hunting. It's like you're used to doing hard shit.
Yep.
This was not physically challenging, but you were still being challenged to do everything right as a hunter to get the job done.
Yep.
But I do know he and I we're departing in November for 9 days to a very interesting portion of West Virginia, and I'm going to change that up on him a little bit. I don't think that we're going to go hunt all the places that we've scouted. I've connected with a guy that hunts that region, and I've been eyeballing an area that butts up to this wilderness area that we were going to pack into. And this spot is, I mean, it's nothing but oaks. I mean, it's the terrain is ridiculous. I mean, it's steep and deep, but it's solid oaks. And
Cool.
knowing if we both have whitetail tags and we both have black bear tags, and knowing that it's within the first 2 weeks of November, the deer are going to be rutting hard. The does are going to be all over those oak ridges and those saddles and those secondary ridges and those knobs and the noses out on those ridges. The does are going to be crawling all over those.
Mhm.
So are the black bear. The black bear are going to be crushing all of that soft mass before they go hibernate.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm just looking at, man, do we forego the look of Canada and tromping through the marshes of this wilderness area that we've scouted, which is, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. It's a very unique place, and it would be a neat place to go pursue deer in, but the deer density in there is lower. And I just, not to be a hypocrite, but I would like to fill a tag as well. And I would really like to take a black bear out of the saddle. So
Yeah, that would be
looking
fun.
at the animal density is going to be congregated where the food sources are, especially in November. So the does are going to be in there eating. The bucks are going to be in there chasing the does. That's where they're going to be rutting. And that's where the black bears are going to be stacked up, hitting those fat stores before they crawl in a hole for the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm just like going in there and doing that with him. It's going to be so much fun. And I'm looking at, I told him when he left, I'm like, hey man, it kicking you out of the nest. when you and I both have deer tags or bear tags in our pockets, I'm not necessarily going to go climb a tree with you now. You go,
Yeah. You go
we'll
that way, I go that way. Yeah.
yeah, it's time for you to start spreading those wings and learning to go pick your own tree. And I'm like, we'll pour over the maps together and I'll tell you what area I would go to and why, but you need to walk in there and find your tree, climb your
Yeah.
tree. And then you have such a greater chance of having an animal walk in within bow range in that environment where you're around ample food sources than
Yeah.
going in and trying to find this other area that would be far more challenging to connect on animals in. And I think our better option is to go someplace where our odds are a lot higher in success. And
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
a ton of
Follow
fun.
the
And
food. Follow that time of the year, follow the food. And and again, if you just kind of help him in the maps and be like, here's what you need to look for. Here's a couple, saddles or whatever, in this area to, that I would check out and look for this sign, look for this food, look for, see if you can find a couple scrapes or something, check your wind, see if you can, get set up downwind, play your thermals, have those discussions. And if you're there 9 days, chances are he'll figure it out and at least have a chance on something. And if he does, and if he takes something, dude, the satisfaction and the self satisfaction, the reward that he will feel out of that, it won't matter if it's a little 4 pointer or a 12 pointer or a doe or a bear. It won't matter. He at that point, whatever the trophy is, the trophy is the situation. It's not the headgear, or the hide or
right.
even the meat, So yeah, it'll be a good situation for him. But yeah, it's that challenging yourself, man, doing something different. It really
Yeah.
is. So it really is. But yep.
Well, it's that exciting time of year. We have early muzzleloader this week here in
Oh wow.
Maryland, and so
Wow.
I'm going to be up in a big state forest, and getting up in the saddle. I love black powder out of a saddle.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
so cool.
I've never muzzleloader hunted outside. I've taken a rifle a couple times. I got a 450 Bushmaster on an AR platform.
Uh huh.
That's kind of fun up in the saddle. That short compact gun, and all
Yep.
that. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've muzzleloaded. It's been
I
quite a
love it.
while. I
I
used to
love it.
enjoy it, and yeah, I haven't done it in a long time. So, but yeah, it's a good time. But we don't have that until it'll be mid-November before you can do that around here in Indiana. So it's all bow up until then. So, which is fine. So fine by me. So I still love my bow. So
I almost thought about taking my bow on this early muzzleloader hunt, but I love taking the black powder gun out at
oh
least
yeah,
once a year.
it's all
It's so
cool.
much fun, and doing it from a saddle is a gas. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And
I've had a lot of people ask me. I did a video on gun hunting out of the saddle, like because people always ask, like, can you actually gun hunt or muzzleloader hunt? I have a saddle. I'm like, because everybody just sees bow hunters doing it. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah. In fact, it's almost better.
it's way easier.
I think it's better than doing it out of a tree stand. I mean, you got a built-in rest
Yes,
all the time. That bridge, and there's just so many options as far as, having a solid rest where if you're sitting in a lock-on tree stand and you're facing out there, you're pretty much mostly freehanding. I mean, if you're lucky, they come in behind you and you can use the tree as a, something to prop against. But in a saddle, 99% of the time you got a rest to work off of utilizing that bridge or your ropes in some type of capacity. So yeah, it's pretty awesome actually. Just the
it is.
mobility, it's great. And I'll tell you what, saddle hunting and mobile hunting, it's the most liberating thing that I've ever introduced into my hunting arsenal, man.
Hmm.
I was a tree stand lock on. The saddle hunting thing came out. I was about 50 years old and everybody started doing it. And I was like, yeah, look at those young guns doing that. I'm 50. That's for those 25 to 35-year-olds. I'm too old for that stuff. And my buddy Nate Sellers out in PA, he convinced me to try it. And I was like, All right. Begrudgingly, I went and bought at the time just a whole tethered setup. I mean, they were one of the few real players at that point in the game, and I just bought everything. I didn't know what to buy, and I bought it all really with the intention of doing a video on why saddle hunting sucked, and it was no fun. It was a pain in the ass, and all this stuff and everything. And about I play around with it, and about 2 hunts into it, I'm like, holy cow, this is pretty cool, and just fell in love with it and the whole mobile hunting game, and so it's the best. It's the only way I hunt pretty much anymore. So, I love it. So
I do. It's an absolute game changer. And speaking of game changer, I am rocking the Latitude Maverick this year.
yeah,
And
I have one.
I have
Yeah.
been a hardcore 2 panel guy since the beginning,
Yeah.
and the Maverick is amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. So
absolutely love it.
the last 2 years I've been hunting out a method two from Latitude, that Alex and Corey and them gave me. And I had their classic too. And then Corey sent me a Maverick and sent me a Lone Star this summer. And I really, really like the Maverick a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm a 2 panel saddle guy. For a single panel, it's my favorite single panel that I've ever sat in. And I didn't think it would be. I was like, oh, the Lone Star, it's a Cadillac. That thing would be awesome. And it's fine. It's pretty stiff. But that Maverick is a great minimalist single panel saddle. My only issue is, for some reason, and not I've never had back injuries or anything, but for some reason my back just gets real sore, and I really have got to have that back support that like a 2 panel typically offers. So, and I was hunting out of the Maverick. I hunted out of the Maverick several times in September because this reduction zone I have open September 15th, and was loving it, but I was taking a back band with me too, just because my back just can't take it. And But I do like it. The thing I don't like about a back band is it's the extra set of straps and everything. So I went back to the Method 2. However, I've been wanting to try one for a while, so I ordered a Buzzard Roost from Benny, and got that in, and that's what I was wearing the other day when I was in that when I killed that buck the other day. And I really like it. For me, it's kind of a toss up between that Method 2 from Latitude. I love Latitude. I love everybody there. I mean, they're such great guys. I'm friends with them all. The Buzzard Roost, it's just got a little more comfort for me. And I really think, and I did a video on the Maverick saddle and the Lone Star, and actually tied it kind of into the Method 2. And I really could see the next iteration, if they choose to do one. I suggested they did that they do an update to it now that they've done what they did with the Maverick. Is that upper panel on the Method 2, they really need to
Mhm.
incorporate that 4-inch wide webbing in there. And that's where that Buzzard Roost, that's the difference. It's like Benny was already doing a 4-inch wide, and it's a total game changer from a 2 panel saddle. It distributes that load. And I really think that if Latitude elects to incorporate what they've learned since they brought what's his name over from TX5, his name's escaping me right now. Anyways, and they incorporated that in, and did what they did with the Maverick 2, I think that they could have something that's just phenomenal and again, the Method 2 is a great saddle. I've hunted out of one for 2 years. I love it. No shade thrown at Latitude at all. I love what they do as a company. I've got almost everything that they ever made out there in my barn. But I think that'll be the thing that, and then you got, if they do that, you got that in the Buzzard Roost. It's like throw them up in the air and good luck. I mean, you can't go wrong with either one of them. You pick. But that Buzzard Roost is a really nice saddle.
Is it?
Really nice saddle. Yeah. So
I was skeptical about going to a single panel. I did it for 2 reasons. It was because it was a little bit lighter than the Method 2.
so light.
I was trying to cut weight on my backcountry rig as much as I could. And it's simple. I don't have to worry about my panels getting twisted up or anything, right? I can pull it out of the pack. I can put it on the dark. When I get out of the tree in the dark, I can shove it down in my pack. I can get back to my shelter, and then recocking my bag over a freeze-dried meal is super simple now. I I don't have to worry about twisted panels and all that garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've
Yeah,
been,
that can be a problem sometimes. I've had the Method 2 get twisted up a couple times
yep,
on me and stuff. But and I was talking to Corey a little bit about it, and I've got some ideas, like some things that they could fix to make it a little bit cleaner. But I mean, it's great. But that Maverick saddle, I did a whole review on it, and I really do like it. I mean, in fact, it's my, I get a lot of people that come to me. They're like, "Hey, I want to get into saddle hunting, but I don't want to spend, $1,000. Where do I start?" And I used to have this like list, but and I still do, and it like changes every day. It'd be like, well, this saddle and like the tethered Skeletor sticks, or something like that. If you're working on a budget, and for me now, when guys are coming to me, I'm going like, well, if you want a single panel, then the Maverick is
yeah,
get that, because A, it's affordable at $200, and B, it's super light. It's no BS, no frills, and the thing is so dang comfortable.
it
It
is.
really is. And if you need some back support and you don't mind dealing with the extra straps, then get a back band. I mean, Latitude makes them. I've got an old tethered one from years ago. Or heck, you can make your own out of, just some straps if you wanted to, and whatever. But, it's a great saddle. I mean, it really is. It's the one I'm recommending. And I still recommend too, people, if you want a 2 panel, I mean, for the price, you can't go wrong with a Method 2, I mean, get it. If you just wanted
Method
to
2 is
start out.
stellar.
Oh,
Method
it's a
2 is
great
just
saddle.
it's a rock solid saddle, but
It's a
man,
great saddle. I've killed so many deer out of that thing. It's awesome. But
the
but yeah,
Maverick has my heart. I
it's
can't
great.
believe how comfortable that
I
thing
know.
is.
I didn't think it would be. I was like, oh, this Lone Star is going to be killer. Look at that, because I admit it. I'm a premium guy, man. I like my premium stuff. I like my expensive trucks. I like my gear, and all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, Lone Star, that's going to be it. And it's fine. It's too stiff for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to like this Maverick. And I put the thing on. I got in a tree. And I was like, holy crap, this thing is comfortable,
Yeah.
and it's so lightweight. You don't even notice it's on you.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Yep, yep, really good saddle for sure.
Right on. Well, Derek, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, so the best place to find me, YouTube. That's the best place. That's where I always direct people to first. You can find me on YouTube. My channel is New Day Outdoors. Just search it. You'll find me. Gazillion videos in there, and there's everything from hunt videos. I mean, obviously do that. There's tons of gear review stuff. There's how-to tactic stuff. There's just my life. That's one of the things too, is my channel really is, it's not going to be just all hunts. It's just my life. It's like what crap did I do on Saturday and Sunday weekend in July, that had nothing hunting related. So it's a lot. I mean, and so there's a little bit of everything in there for you. I've got a lot of content on the Magnus Broadheads YouTube channel, so you can go there. I would encourage people to check that out, especially if you're looking for good quality fixed blade heads. Mike Samuels has been one of my best friends for years, and he and I are texting and calling each other every day and all that. So it's been a fun relationship. So you can find a lot of stuff I did there. Outside that, you can look me up on Facebook, just Derek Craig. I do have a New Day Outdoors Facebook page, but I really honestly don't do anything with it. You can find me on Instagram. It's just New Day Outdoors, is at New Day Outdoors. I'm not on Twitter or X or TikTok or any of that crap. But yeah, YouTube is where I send everybody. So really, that's the best way. And just message me, make a comment, whatever. I'll get back with you, all that. So that's it. So give it a like, subscribe, all that lame stuff you got to ask for. So anyways,
Awesome. Derek,
yeah,
thank you so much for hopping on with me today. This has been
dude,
awesome.
it's been fun. I'm sorry it took so long, but actually this made a better story than, I don't know what the hell we would have talked about last spring. So this was a lot better, right?
We would have just talked about turkey hunting and
We've done that.
and we would have probably covered some of the same content. It just not would have been driven in the same direction that we went today. Yeah, today was meant to be, man.
Good. So, well, hey, man, I really thank you for pestering me and saying, hey, let's get together and let's talk and everything. So it's been a lot of fun, buddy. So
we will see each other in a couple of months.
we will definitely.
All
Hey,
right.
good luck with you and your buddy on your trip. So
Thank
right?
you. Okay, I'll send you a late night picture.
You do that. You do that.
I will.
I expect it. So,
It's coming.
all right.
It's coming. All
All
right,
right,
Jeff.
brother.
Hey, be limitless, man.
All right. Thanks.